and suddenly realized his body was slowly shrinking. When he found his wedding ring inexplicably dropped to the floor, even his once 1.8-meter frame had shrunk to match his wife's 1.5 meters. At first, Paul didn't think much of it, but as time passed, he grew smaller and smaller, finally shrinking to the size of a mosquito. The spiders in his home now seemed like terrifying monsters. It turned out that after Paul first noticed his shrinking, he had gone to the local hospital for a checkup, yet all his vital signs were perfectly normal, no abnormalities in his bones or blood. As the shrinking intensified, and hospital treatments proved ineffective, facing exorbitant medical bills, Paul returned home to recuperate. Soon, he shrank to the size of a cat, to protect her husband's life. His wife had to throw the cat outside. She even told others her husband had died, planning to sell their house. This instantly enraged Paul, as he felt his wife no longer saw him as a normal person, but as a seriously ill burden on the family. Yet as days passed, Paul's body continued shrinking, forcing him to live in his daughter's toy house. At first, Paul found this amusing, as it meant he could stay home with his daughter instead of working. But soon, he could no longer laugh, for his wife dared not let him sleep in the bed, fearing she might roll over and crush him in her sleep. Yet the more she avoided him, the more Paul craved the bed. He devised a plan, attaching a fishhook to a rope. He thought he could climb up using it. But just then, a cat's meow echoed from outside the door. The cat they'd thrown out had returned. Paul broke out in a cold sweat. To his eyes, the cat had become a monstrous beast. He tried to stand and flee, but the fishing hook accidentally sliced his skin. Even more terrifying, the cat assumed a hunting stance toward him. To save his life, Paul quickly grabbed an embroidery needle for defense, then turned and fled backward. But how could his speed match that of a cat? Soon the cat caught up from behind. In his panic, he accidentally fell into the basement. Hearing his wife's cries from upstairs, Paul desperately shouted her name, trying to get her attention, but his body had shrunk, and his voice was now as faint as a mosquito's. His wife couldn't hear a thing. When she saw the cat she'd thrown out return, she instantly realized something was terribly wrong.
C'est toi qui as fait ça. C'est pas possible. Pourquoi t'as fait ça?
Je suis là!
Late that night, when all was quiet, Paul found a scrap of cloth to cover himself, and barely managed to survive the night in the basement. Early the next morning, Paul was awakened by his daughter's cries. This instantly gave Paul hope. To catch her attention, he quickly grabbed a half-chalk piece, and wrote his name at the basement entrance. After finishing this, his stomach growled loudly. He began searching the basement for food, and finally discovered a mousetrap his wife had set. With a large chunk of cheese on top, he forcefully tossed aside his embroidery needle, and began devouring the treat in big bites. Little did he know, a massive shadow had crept up behind him. Realizing the basement was swarming with spiders, Paul had to find a safer shelter. Spotting a cardboard box nearby, he soaked it with water, cut a hole in it, and propped it shut with debris. Only then did he sleep soundly through the night. But as days passed, there was no sign of his wife or daughter upstairs. Clearly, they had accepted Paul was dead. Soon after, Paul pried open a wine bottle. He drowned his sorrows in the basement every day. What was even more terrifying was that his body kept shrinking. Realizing he'd soon be smaller than the spiders, Paul grabbed an embroidery needle, ready to eliminate the spiders. But then, he suddenly fell into the fish tank. The shock made his scalp